Richard Carlton. Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker training. We are here at fmtrain.tv where it's Friday, and I'm actually been back this week trying to get unpacked and reorganized because I was out in January doing some, I would say secret stuff, but not really secret stuff. We're doing some more flying and got that done, so that was nice. So if you go to fmtrain.tv, you can see the upcoming broadcast schedule. So let's cover a little bit of housekeeping before we dive in today's awesome live stream on the Claris /FileMaker platform. First off is that we have a, you don't quite see it on the schedule coming up, but a major schedule event starts February, I would say September, February 23rd. Is it 21st or 23rd, Margaret? We're starting
21st.
Yeah, 2 weeks of intensive JavaScript for beginners kind of training. And then that will be during our free live stream. And then once that's over, there will be an additional paid course if you want to dig into that for another week. And the goal is to teach you how to build a mobile application, executable mobile application, iOS or Android. And we've been mostly doing Android just because, and allow you to build a front-end client for like a CRM or something, right? Obviously, we're doing something very generic and basic, but in your business, your situation, your organizational needs, you would tune this to what you personally need. So that's coming up. That's a big deal. Leland Long will be heading that up. He's one of the sharper programmers I've ever run into. He's up there with some pretty high-end, like the Josh Ormons and the Wim DeCourts and people like that. Very sharp individual. And he's big on JavaScript. So that will be coming up. So in terms of the more near-term tactical schedule, today's open Q&A on anything and everything with the Claris /FileMaker platform. We're going to start off with kind of a recap of some things, get everyone up to speed on that, then we'll go from there. And then Monday, we got some custom functions with Jake Sheely. That's kind of interesting. I think Christian Olson will be here to help with that. Then we got Nick and his hamburger action. Yeah, so then Friday, we got collection of Christian's tips and tricks for FileMaker. Once again, every time we say FileMaker, I have to try to learn to say Claris FileMaker, but really it's really, I've started to do Claris and I put the / near FileMaker. So it's kind of one or the other. It shows that they're kind of different, right? Because they're not the same. So what I want to do is kind of rewind the tape. So if you have questions today, there's a lot of actually little bits of news that have been going on. And so we're going to cover these news items. Let me dive into that real quick. So up front, Claris did I got an email about an hour ago or less, and they've updated their latest Linux. Originally it was a text file. Here's how you install Linux as a text file. And it was only about 95% incomplete. And Jacob Taylor had a coronary and a stroke, and we revived him, right? So Jacob's our server guy. He's kind of like
I'm back.
Kind of a Wim DeCourt person, right, Jacob? You're there. You're alive today, yes?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, great.
I've returned from the dead.
Returned from the dead. So then there was some back and forth with him and Wim, and then Wim and Claris, and going around. And then so Claris, I think, might have a fairly complete Linux white paper. And so this is what it is right here. If you want to check this out, I mean, literally it came off the presses publicly to my email about an hour ago. So if you scroll through here, it's got why. Okay, so if you don't know why Linux, I should just reach through the internet and slap you. And why the benefits of Linux, I should be able to go to anyone here who watches these live streams, who's been paying attention. We're in the year 2023. Okay, we don't use Commodore 64s anymore, right? So if you don't know why Linux is good or useful, you've not been paying attention. So I'm going to just assume this is like for people who literally have been in suspended animation, right, for 30 years, right? And then what's the value of Claris bringing to play? So then in here, it gets interesting. And then why Ubuntu or whatever, that's fine, but you get some tips and tricks on installing it, right? Installing these items. So we're going to go through these. Jacob is going to give it his seal of approval per se, I guess. Not so much on why, but on the installation questions, things like that. So I think this is probably a pretty good step. I got pros and cons. Oh, I like that. Good. This looks pretty good. So this went through a draft process. I was out in January. And for those of y'all, I'm not going to bring this up anymore, but some of you are wondering, missed this. I worked on. I got my official certified flight instructor for helicopters. So I'm uh, actually I have a limit, a small. It's a the U.S. government considers it a teaching credential, if you can believe that. So it's a teaching credential specific to rotary wing aircraft. So kind of wild stuff. So can I post the link to the PDF? I will let Jacob find the official Claris link so you can direct them to the link at Claris. I don't know if you have
I'll
to
do
log
that.
into the Claris community to get it. I didn't have to log in to get it. But you know how companies are, like if they might want to know who you are. So we'll just let Jacob post that. So that's the Linux thing Linux action going on there. So some of us were a little bit out in January, so we've been rewinding the tape, figuring out what happened in January with Claris. And one of the things that came out was that there was a live stream webinar that came on with Brad Freitag, the chief executive officer, kind of the head person at Claris, and his merry people that work with him, right? So Peter Nelson was there, and Andy was not there, but Rosemary was there, and Robert Halsey, some people like that. So that, Margaret, if you could find that YouTube link, it was from Haley. We want to make sure we get that link too, because what we want to do is post that video if you want to watch it. But it started off, and I was a little cringing at kind of some of the platitudes that came out in the first 30 seconds from Brad, and I was like, oh, no. And then he immediately pivoted, instead of saying, like they always say, developers are important, we love you, right? That kind of thing, right? And it's developers are important. I totally believe that, but I'm a big believer in actions, right? And things like that. Well, the management team at Claris has been listening to the feedback of the messaging from the developer community, and I remember having some meetings down there with them before Christmas, and trying to allude to them that some of the concerns that the community had, and the committee was drawing its own conclusions because Brad and team had not really articulated certain things. And so Brad went out of his way in this video, did a really great job. It went from I was cringing for the first 30 seconds to this is really, really good. And so what I did is I've summarized it here. I'm going to bring everyone up to date. I keep repeating certain messaging in terms of the Claris FileMaker platform, because there are people who have not been around for 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, who will watch this video and you don't understand kind of what's going on in the trajectory that Claris is on right now. And what I've done is I've taken our standard kind of explanation and I've augmented it with Mr. Brad's improvements in what he said. And I thought it was really good. In fact, it was so good, we're going to repeat what he said today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to this keynote. So up front, as a reminder, as we're doing training, we target different demographic, well, not really demographics, but skill-based groups, right? So we've got brand new people, we got brand new developers, we got intermediate developers, we got senior developers, and there's obviously a continuum in between all these, right? That makes sense. So brand new, like I'm training 3 brand new junior engineers right now, and I'm doing, I would say, probably most of the training with them. And then there are intermediate developers, and my junior folks who've only been here 3 months are already getting the intermediate level stuff. They're pretty sharp, so we're pretty happy about that. And then you get the seniors. A lot of you here are senior level developers, and so it's good to make sure that we hats off to you for being awesome, doing a great job, continuing to build your skills, building great custom applications, saving your customers, whoever they are, time and money. You might be an outside developer or an in-house developer, it doesn't matter. You have people who are using your custom application. Those are your customers. You're saving, you're making them much better. You're saving their lives, right? Their business lives, right? So very important. So let's talk about this. So Brad was talking, the first slide that came out was this slide right here. I kind of hijacked some of the material here. And so they basically talk about the essential components. And about every 6 months, they take this artwork and they redo the artwork. But the messaging has generally been pretty consistent. So this is the current edition of the artwork. So developers are internal and external. They're super important. We're focused on product. We want to focus on recruiting, which is kind of an interesting conversation. I'm not going to dive too much into that. Enable and engage, which is another interesting. In fact, I called Andy Lacates and we had a chat, so I have a little bit of information, kind of update on that end of things. And then obviously this conversation about the free tier. We call it freemium. There's a freemium kind of an early phase, which they're now rolling out, which is kind of this limited rollout for testing purposes. And then longer term, I don't have anything to add to this too much, but they are going to offer freemium, and I've not seen the final. I've not had any communication with Claris on this in actually months now, at least 2 months on this topic, and that's a long time. So I'm hoping that someone there will talk to me about what the latest scoop is on their public offering, but they want to get it threaded into the Apple Store. So when people go and say, I want to learn about project management or database or something like that, it doesn't say buymonday.com or buysalesforce.com or whatever it's selling. It should be selling for a vast majority of people. It should be pushing the Claris platform, right? So let's talk a little bit about that. So once again, I'm going to show you my slides, and I'm going to augment with the conversation from Brad Freitag, which was really good. And this was from a video from January 25th that's on YouTube. So real quick, so this is how we got to where we're at. This has been work in progress. This is only for the folks who have been not paying attention, and suddenly you're watching this video and now you want to know what the hell's going with the Claris /FileMaker platform, and why did I say Claris /FileMaker? This is kind of the rough part of the conversation to get your head wrapped around this. So Claris, we've had this platform for a long time. It's been around for like 33 years. It's been evolving and growing, improving. And so it's basically the FileMaker Pro, the FileMaker Go, FileMaker Server, everything starts with the word FileMaker in it, right? So what Claris did is that they decided that we really want to build some new great capabilities into the product. The rub is that if we build some of these new great capabilities into the product, we're going to break existing deployments. So they could roll out, say, a new version of say FileMaker, and then everything could break. And not break a little bit like it's a bug, like, oops, we'll fix it. That happens all the time anyway. They fix it and we move on, but it's broken and it's never coming back, right? You don't want that kind of like, it's like in the war movies where everyone runs across the bridge and the bridge blows up so no one can go back across the bridge. You don't want that. So what Claris did is that they forked the platform, is the term. Claris doesn't really like to use that word, but it's important as a developer, as a professional developer, to understand what's going on so you can make intelligent decisions, which is what Brad's asking you to do, and we're going to get to that. So they forked the platform. Essentially, they mirrored everything across, and that's how they started. They changed the names of it. So everything that was FileMaker became the word Claris. Okay, why bother? Well, then Claris, the company, starts adding to the Claris platform and products some additional Claris products, right? If I say the word Claris too many times, not my fault. Once again, if you want to know why they use Claris, every other word, we'll have to talk to Claris about that. So they're adding some new features to the product. The Claris, we get to eventually have the server, but we have Claris Studio, Claris Connect, and eventually this freemium offering over there. Claris is calling it the free tier. They don't call it freemium. But if I say the word freemium, everyone on the planet knows what that means. So the important thing to understand is that in your organization, you're probably going to have either the FileMaker platform deployed, or you'll have the Claris platform deployed. You probably, for most organizations, won't have both deployed at the same time. The two don't talk to each other. There is a migration path from right to left here. So you have a FileMaker solution, FMP12 solution. You can drag and drop it onto Claris Pro. It will migrate and upgrade for you. So that's how you do. Then you upgrade all your apps to this new platform. And so, of course, what happened with this is that we have these new capabilities down here, really great. They're not going to come over here because really, if we add these, it can break things. So over here is the new areas where we want to migrate to. There are some limitations. So Brad spoke to this as well. I thought it was really well done. And the limitations are kind of this ongoing idea, things that have to be remediated, right? So remediate's a fancy way of saying we're going to address them and fix them or somehow remove them so they're not a concern anymore. So I'm not going to dive into these too much, but my organization isn't using Claris platform yet. I know most of the big consultancies are not using the Claris platform yet internally, just because some of these holes, these issues down here, the offline access, the OAuth, Azure, ODBC, some of these other issues are big issues. They haven't been resolved yet. Additionally, the Claris ID is really kind of a painful security thing to use. Every time it sounds good, but then you try to use it, and it's not as smooth as, say, like Google OAuth or things like that. So there's probably some friction there that needs to be fixed. But the point is what Claris. So this is where the communication has been to this point, and so we're on the older platform. We want to move to the newer platform. And everyone goes, and everyone was speculating, oh my gosh, how long do we have before till Claris quits supporting FileMaker, right? Well, essentially, these are all the FileMaker products here with a different name, right? And so that's kind of an awkward conversation to have with people. Well, it's got a different name, but it's the same thing. So, but it's that same great goodness, the awesomeness that made FileMaker. FileMaker is still over here, but they're adding new things. If we could remediate or remove some of these issues over here, then there's no reason not to upgrade, right? And so this is what Brad threw this out on January 25th. So this is a slide that goes on. And this is essentially, they call it market performance, but it's basically the idea that if you have a product, you have a revolutionary product, generally the product has a beginning, and at the very beginning of the product, if this back here, down here would be probably 1988 or something, right? 87, 86, somewhere in there, where FileMaker was brand new, and Steve Jobs got a hold of it and thought it was great, and he personally used it, right? Really neat stories about Steve Jobs using FileMaker. So, because he was a creative guy, and what can you do with FileMaker? Creatively solve problems. It's awesome. I mean, that would be a great commercial to have. I have to get someone to approve that. But yeah, endorsed and approved by Steve Jobs, right? So, but the idea was that this is get the awareness going, that people start to use it, then it takes off in the marketplace and there's rapid growth and huge developer adoption. And then you kind of get to the end of the cycle where, maybe the technology, it's on-prem, it's not so cloud. So then it's, then maybe it slows down, it's not so great. And so the idea for Claris, the corporation, now I'm talking about Claris, the company, no longer called FileMaker, for those of you wondering about that, it's now the Claris International. The idea was to add a new kind of capability and glue it in, right? Add this capability. So they call it the Claris platform, but the idea is that they take the best pieces of what FileMaker was, and then in their term, a couple things get broke, which causes people to kind of like me to kind of like, it's broke, I don't want to use it yet. But the idea is that it's on a new trajectory with a hybrid approach between cloud and on-prem. So when I say on-prem, I'm talking about your server in your office or out in the desert. I have a customer who literally was 500 miles out in the middle of the desert. And in fact, I heard about this actually out in the desert around Israel someplace. And people would go out there doing archaeology and stuff. And they had their own FileMaker servers out there with them because they didn't want to have to rely upon internet. And I haven't tried Starlink with FileMaker Server yet across the globe. That's the Elon Musk's wireless satellite connection thing. I assume it's pretty great, but the idea is that you want to be able to have an on-prem server that you can control. Not everyone wants their stuff in the cloud. There might be some regulatory issues with that. So what happens is Brad went on to talk about this area right in here, which is kind of where we're at today. And what it is that the idea that we have kind of this idea that they're taking the best parts of FileMaker, they're kind of remediating some of the things they broke and creating it in the first place. It's a hybrid environment between cloud and on-prem. And the important part of this is that he came out and said, there's no rush to get off of FileMaker. We don't want anyone to feel like they're rushed. And in the event that the issues with Claris Studio and Claris Connect and this orange product line here, there's some sort of issue that you don't like or doesn't work for you, that's fine. Just keep using FileMaker for now, but keep an eye on it. Retry it, reevaluate it. Come to our live streams when we talk about it, where we take it for a test spin to see how far we can get with it before it falls over, right? And the idea is to, at some point, I expect sometime in this calendar year, 2023, that Claris will remediate those issues and I can move over and start using it. I'm looking forward to that. And so we're in this area here where they're starting to remove the objections that people have. It doesn't support Active Directory. It doesn't support third-party identity providers, things like that, right? Very, very important. Brad was very specific about saying it's not like you've got 12 months, you better move or you're toast, right? In fact, some of the developers were thinking that. We had a pool, we were taking bets on how long it was before Claris would kill the FileMaker platform. And I had a meeting with Brad and I said, yeah, there's this we got these bets going on, and I bet 2 years, and David and I bet 12 months, et cetera, et cetera. This was back, back in November, and Brad they were kind of shocked. I said, well, you didn't say anything about it, so if you don't talk about it, people are going to draw their own conclusions. So Brad went out of his way to address this. I did a really good job. So it's in that video that if you watch I would say watch the first 15. If you can spend the first 15 minutes, the first 15 minutes is the best 15 minutes of that live stream, because it frames the fact that you're not being held hostage. You don't have to upgrade immediately or anytime in the measurable near future. I would say years down the road, if because there are some people. I got a call the other day, some person, I'm using FileMaker 4, help us upgrade. I'm like, dude, I don't think I can help you. You're too old. Just shoot your database, right? It's like if you have a 40-year-old horse. Most horses never make it that long, right? That's an old horse, right? So that horse is old. So anyway, but some people will never upgrade. I can't help those people. The people who want to upgrade to stay up to date, they will find a spot soon where they can move to the Claris platform. And I think that, they won't have a reasonable objection at that point. So that's pretty cool. So that's essentially kind of the summary of where we're at now. So once again, the whole idea is that you're not, so this blue arc here, right? Notice the colors match my colors. So there's that new arc of the new stuff. And these are the things that we're kind of objecting to, but they're going to kind of go away in here. They're going to fix them, and we'll get to this point where we really want to be on board with the new platform, right? So I think it makes a lot of sense, and the management team there went out of their way to articulate this issue. And even if it's not right for you today, come back in a month or 2 months and let's see where we're at, right? 3 months, see where we're at. And I will be doing this frequently here. We're going to do another walkthrough of Studio in depth to see how far we can get with it before it drives us insane. I did see some cool things the other day that in that video you'll see where they're doing some, like no code kind of stuff, drag and drop. And if this happens, then do this. And under the hood, it's writing some code, right? And you could expose that code if you're a professional developer. And I was like, wow, that's cool. I saw that and I went, yeah, that's neat. That's the beginning of awesome right there is what that is. So I thought that was pretty great. Will FileMaker Server or Claris Studio Windows for Windows? So in the conversation, Brad said that if we have to support platforms, we will do it. He didn't specifically say, I guarantee I will support Windows, but I know a lot of customers that if they don't support Windows will never move over to this other orange side over here. So they loosely alluded to, Jacob, if you want to help me with this, alluded to the idea in this video. They said, well, they kind of hit it really obliquely, really fast, and I caught it. Most people wouldn't catch it, but we're looking at investing in containers, along with the Linux. That's all they said. It's not a really well-formed sentence in there. So my job here is to help you with that. But the idea is that they use this Docker or containerizing an environment, and then you can take that, like basically a Linux app, and take it to theoretically Mac or Windows or wherever you want to go, and it should just install.
Yep. I'm
looking forward to seeing that work correctly. So that would be awesome. Yeah. So yeah, that would.
I have questions about that approach, but I'll just say, generally speaking, it will do what we need, which is it threads the needle. They don't want to support 3 platforms, right? 3 different server operating systems, Windows, Mac, and Linux. They would like to avoid that or stop spending that money. And this will let them, we'll say, focus on Linux. They're going to do all their development for that platform. But via containers, we will be able to take those Linux apps and put them elsewhere, basically, run them on different operating systems. So
David Angel just asked the question. So he actually asked 2. Well, he asked 3 questions. The first one's about, FileMaker. And if I say FileMaker Server, I mean FileMaker. Well, we're talking about Claris Server, right? Because right now, FileMaker Server works on Mac, Windows, and Linux. But Claris Server at the moment is Linux only, which is kind of like this, right? So we're down here in this area where we're like, I don't know, because you might have an organization. Like I can go to Jacob Taylor and say, Jacob Taylor, go do Linux. And Jacob goes, sir, yes, sir. And he does Linux, right? But at some IT organizations, if you say that to them, they're going to pull out a fork and stick you in the rear end because they ain't doing it, right? And if you, I'm being serious, some IT organizations, are Windows only, and Linux can kiss their butt, right? So that's a problem some places, right? So that's why we're in this area right here. So that was David's first question. Second question, so they're going to be pushing software as a service. I think part of the FileMaker continuum of the product line, if I go forward here, some of these items work on-prem. Some of these work great in cloud. Some of them work in both places, right? And so already FileMaker, the platform over here is a cloud. It can work on cloud or it can work on-prem. This area over here is pretty much the client can work on-prem, but it can't authenticate the server unless you use the Claris ID, which is only in the cloud. So there's another one of those little moments down here where we're like, right, not so good. So, but Mr. Freitag said very specifically, I'm just repeating what he said, and I take him at face value on this, is that we want a hybrid cloud. That little bit of text sucks. It's hybrid cloud, i.e. cloud and on-prem together. Right? Makes sense? So they're going to continue on that. So they're going to offer all this on a subscription. The days of buying, I mean, I guess they'll find, I mean, he also indicated that at the end of February or sometime in March, they're going to come out with some new improved, simplified licensing plan. If Claris actually simplifies their licensing at some point, that would be, I think, essentially the first time in 33 years it's gotten simpler. So I'm all like fingers crossed, right? Because about the time you think you have simpler licensing, then there's this, asterisk, people who are in France under the EU can't use XYZ because of XYZ, then Claris has to do, kind of make an exception for them or something, right? And the road to hell is paved with edge cases and exceptions, right? And licensing is very susceptible to that just because of a lot of government regulation worldwide, right? We're not talking about just in California, right? So very, very important. I think this is it was a good conversation. But yeah, the other thing that came up is that Claris is, two interesting bits of news. If you watch this video and you've been paying attention to other little bits of news, Claris, for whatever reason, found out that Google wasn't all they dreamed and hoped it could be in terms of the Google cloud, Google data center infrastructure, whatever. I'm not sure what happened with that. I've never been a giant Google fan, mostly because Apple is highly allergic to Google and they hate Google, not just a little bit, but a lot. Like Google, for Apple, Google's the new Microsoft, right? And so the fact that Claris was in bed with them kind of surprised me. AWS is like kind of the agnostic. AWS and like Linux, if you think of Linux kind of like this agnostic kind of, we don't love anyone, we love everyone equally, or we hate everyone equally. AWS is like that, right? We're not really a Microsoft shop, we're not really a Linux shop, we're not really a Mac shop. We're just kind of, and we don't, have any specific loyalties to a particular platform. So AWS for me was always the way to go. Well, Claris somehow came to that conclusion. I don't have the backstory, and it would be interesting to find out sometime. But they have been building a lot of this. Originally built a lot of it at AWS, then they switched to Google. And then apparently over the last X number of months, they decided that their love with Google has waned and they're getting a divorce. And so they're moving back to AWS, which means they kind of had to halt some of their new engineering to re-engineer their bits and pieces to go back to AWS. So they're working on that. They're also standing up data centers, I think one in Europe and one in Japan, I think, Jacob. So they're bringing all this Claris platform, this cloud capability, Claris Studio, to local data centers near you. So they're working on that. It got jammed up because they had to divorce themselves from Google. So once again, interesting on that. Latest releases and bugs that are out there. So current product in market as of right now is 19 dot, and it's the same, I think. Well, I have to download it on.
No, that's
Claris Pro. I haven't done it. Well, it's 19.6, but it's not 19.6 on Claris Pro. It's whatever it is, right? So it's 40. That's something. I have to go and look at that number, but there is an equivalent version there. And so understand 40. That there was we had 19.6.1, they found some bugs, and so we're at 19.6.3 on Pro, and server is 19.6.3 too, Jacob, as well?
Yeah, they're all, for the FileMaker side, they cut everything 19.6.3, so the build numbers are even the same across all the.
Oh, really?
They don't even usually do that. Yeah, it's 302 for everything.
Really?
3.3.3.302 for everything. Yeah, I was
That's interesting.
surprised they'd never done that before.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, it seems like kind of weird that the build numbers would be in sync like that. All right, cool. So we have the white paper on Linux. We have the migration from Google to AWS. We have standing up at new data centers. We have Brad essentially re-articulating that you're not being held hostage, that you have to migrate from one platform to the other platform. He really doesn't even like you to think about it like that because it causes people internal confusion and angst. So let's talk about DevCon. So DevCon, which Claris tried to rename to Auto Destruct or whatever they called it, or Auto Exit. I don't know, they called it Auto Enter. The people are screwing this up because they got pause on air, Auto Exit, Auto Enter, Live. What was the one that Proof guys, those guys did with Reliant last year? Auto Enter, Auto Exit, whatever. It's a bunch of, everyone kind of renames their stuff.
Yeah, it's auto
so anyway, the developer conference, whatever you call it, the big one where everyone gets together, Claris has not announced the giant announcement dates for the conference. They haven't even asked for speakers. Real simple is that Claris, according to Andy, they want to make an announcement in the next couple of weeks about something, but the idea of a galactic, giant, super worldwide conference that would be in Knoxville again for the third time is not. I really, without them saying that ain't happening, I'm pretty sure that ain't happening. I think what they're thinking about is some sort of regional items, etc. Right? Regional events, but I don't know what that looks like, right? But all I know is that people doing the live streams like this is one thing for us to talk and you folks to ask questions here, but to meet in person and for me to be on stage or for me to sit there and watch Ralph or Lynn or Dennis or David or Andy or Kim, or any of you people, maybe Robert Bates, present in person, and they can be right in front of you, 20 feet in front of you, and you can interact and ask questions. And when it's over, you can go have a lunch or have a drink or something like that. All right, question from Robert Bates, right? On-prem FileMaker Server question. Many institutions, Google require two-factor authentication like the one using Google app like Duo, or an app like Duo when logging in the system. They frequently require an institution email as part of the login. Can FileMaker Server, not cloud, interface a two-factor authentication that you might have at a university? Does it need two-factor, or is something built in? So I'm going to answer this, and I'm going to let Jacob answer it. So we're talking about FileMaker Server at the moment over here supports Active Directory, which is the Microsoft. When I say Active Directory, just like that, that means Microsoft on-prem is what that is, okay? That's on-premise, Microsoft, domain controllers and things like that make Active Directory. It also supports third-party identity providers, which means that you can go to a third-party identity provider and go and set it up to use them. In fact, we did a video where we use Azure Active Directory. So if I'm talking about Active Directory, the cloud, I say AZ or Azure Active Directory. That's the cloud one. And if I just say the word quote, quote, Active Directory without anything else, that means the on-prem one. FileMaker Server supports those. However, and this is where I go to Jacob, we've been wrestling with the Azure one a little bit, right, Jacob? What's the issue?
Yeah, it's not an issue specific to Azure actually, but essentially there is some difficulty with it's a little deep in the technical weeds, but when you're going through, you open up your FileMaker Pro, go to connect to your database, it takes you to the Azure login thing, you log in afterwards. The last thing that it does is it kicks you back into Pro, right? You log into your database. That's the last part. It sends some tokens along with it, does that your FileMaker Server can validate and that kind of stuff. It doesn't always make that jump due to, I'll just say, some issues in Claris's implementation of that.
So there's a bug or a implementation. So really over here, there's an issue actually even over here, not just on the Claris FileMaker platform. It's in Claris Server because they copied it from FileMaker Server when they originally forked it, right? But the issue is in both of these, and it's a problem, and you brought it to Claris's attention on the active
Yes.
on this
Yep.
and they had a
They know.
realization that they implemented it incorrectly, and they know.
Yep.
And so, do we have
I've not heard
intel?
anything back, long term after that, etc. I kind of don't expect them to actually talk to me again afterwards, but I am aware of at least one engineering meeting that was a result of my report, basically. So
Well, we've had
I don't know if
customers
that
come
means
to
it
us
gets
and
fixed
complain about
soon or
that.
what.
It's not Jacob. We had customers losing their shit over this.
Absolutely. Yeah. We've had customers that they're having issues rolling out OAuth logins, in this case Azure specifically, but it's anything where the flow goes through the browser and then kicks back into Pro, whatever. All of them use the same process except for the on-prem Active Directory stuff. Everything else is, it runs through a browser essentially. Anything that does that kickback into Pro process doesn't affect everybody, and it's not every time, but it's a problem basically. And it doesn't kick you back into Pro, which is the part that you're hoping for. So
yeah. So to answer Robert Bates, it's supposed to do it, and it's a little flaky, and it's been flaky, and
yeah.
So
and a more a more expansive answer for him is current. And I'd tell you to use the most recent version as well, because it's the most mature. Basically, they've made a bunch of improvements that make it more useful and easier. But FileMaker Server 19.6 specifically, has an what do they call it? Third-party ADP. I think that's the industry term for it, basically, an identity provider. So any of those where you can fill in all your little tokens, your redirect addresses, for people who've done OAuth integrations, there's all those kind of details depending on which implementation you're using. But if you have that, there is a generic version in the FileMaker Server admin console. So you can use Ping and Okta and I assume Duo. I assume that they would do something like any of those companies that do that kind of stuff. There's a short list that Claris specifically validated they work or whatever. But again, as long as it's got all the keys and addresses and stuff that you need to punch in, it should work. And so if you have like a university system or a big corporate, login thing but it's not Active Directory, it's something else. Basically the expectation is that you can use it with FileMaker. So
sure. Yeah, that's the expectation. So I just would be careful about making promises on that right now, because it's kind of a systemic issue they have to fix, and I don't have any sort of.
We've had issues literally had issues rolling Azure AD out at RCC specifically because of it. It's hard for some of my engineers to use that have worked here for a long time. Naturally, of course, as the IT guy, I have literally zero problems that I've never seen. That's how that goes. But some of my staff, new staff, older staff, can't use it. Short version, it does not kick the keys back into Pro at the end, and that's a huge issue because that's the completion of the login. So
there was also a bug that popped up that made some traffic. So the newest version, I think, of Ventura, was that conversation that we had with I think the Texas
13.2.
Yeah. So there's if you have what was the issue? If you had a script.
If you are script debugging, if you're script debugging a script and this is 19.6 and OS X 13.2, which is the very latest edition, latest version of everything. If you're going into a script in the script debugger, the script itself has over 300 lines and block comments, multi-line mega comments, because you put a bunch of them in there, did some returns in there and stuff like you can do. That crashes FileMaker, I think. Like it just falls over.
It just falls over dead. So
and it's known, but
it's a data viewer, or is it the script debugger? Which one is it?
It's the debugger. Yeah, it's the debugger.
Script debugger, which is an essential piece of technology that we have.
Right.
So if we go to the script debugger right there. And so if you start running a script like here, and I say continue, and then you have over 300 lines of code, which is not hard to have over 300 lines if you're a professional or intermediate professional developer. It's doable. And you're in Ventura, the latest over that right there, explosion. So that's it. So that's probably an Apple operating system bug that Claris ran into, where probably Claris call FileMaker Claris, whatever the Pro calls an API in the operating system to draw this window, and they pass data into it. And if there's more than a certain amount of data, the operating system force quits the application as a memory leak or something that blows it up. So it's running in protected memory. Robert Bates says, what skill levels needed to set up? So Margaret, can you find me we did the 2 days of Azure. Me and Jacob Taylor did the 2-day setup on Azure Active Directory with the IDP stuff. Robert, I would say that you need to be on the senior side of the on the IT side of the world, right? So once again, like this is our little graph of like the skill set continuum. You could be an intermediate FileMaker person, technically, or even a junior FileMaker person, but you have to be able to get in the FileMaker server, and you have to understand what keys are, tokens and keys are, very kind of more seniory IT kind of ideas, right? And be able to manage that with these other services. So part of you is going to have to live in here. If you're just like a FileMaker person and you don't know a lot about IT, you're going to need a little help. Like I myself would need a little bit of help. I'm pretty great, but I don't do IDP deep dive stuff. Like Chris Moyer is like a freaking ninja, right, at this stuff. Wim Corp, some people are just ninjas at this key API interaction back and forth. I have some other senior engineers that are really great at that. They're not so much on IT. They could figure it out. But the problem is right now with it is if you plug it in and get it going, it may not work reliably because it's not working reliably for a lot of people in the community. And Claris has been kind of busy driving around it, ignoring it for many, many months. And sooner or later, it's going to become I don't know. It's the dragon at the bridge, right? You're trying to drive over the bridge, and the dragon's protecting the bridge, right? With the Lord of the Rings, you shall not pass, and right. So eventually, it's going to be a fire-breathing dragon that'll prevent something from happening. Or someone at your organization sees it misbehaving, and they go, "Well, that sucks. FileMaker's not reliable." You never want to expose the tools you use like that. So whenever there's a problem and we have to drive around it, we have to pretend like, "Oh, you didn't see anything here. You didn't see anything. Just move on. That's just disregard the explosions." So there it is, a video right there. Link Margaret's posting the video we did on single sign-on. It's a 2-day conversation with Active Directory, and it's a little technical.
Yeah, carefully consult the PDF that comes with that. We made Claris has an official document for how to set that up, and we made an RCC Rev 2 hacked edition of it. I think that was what we called it, because their directions are they're like mostly there, but they miss a couple of important things.
I think we took 3 of their documents and wove them together to create one useful document.
Yeah,
like 3
it's because they had the PDF, and then there were 2 things that was missing that they were elsewhere. And I think there was one thing that wasn't in any of the documents that we added as well. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. There's the link to the PDF in Discord, and that'll be coming to the other chats shortly.
There you go.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all I have to say is pay specific attention to the PDF. Most of the clients I've worked with, they come to me after the fact. They've set everything up, and then they go, "Yeah, I followed everything to a T that was in the PDF," and I come in and basically check their work and help them with go live, which makes that a lot easier. But if you want to try and do it yourself, go for it.
Yep. Cool. All right. This has been about an update of me doing a deep dive. Christian Schmidt from Monkey Bread suggested I do this, dig through it, and that's what we're doing. So that's kind of the plan. So other questions that we have, anyone has, or is it Friday and that's it? You folks are all good.
That maybe they have cracked open their delicious Friday beverage.
Yeah, my Friday beverage is very tasty. Yeah.
The follow-up from Robert Bates. I don't think our IT people can handle that, but does RC do that kind of thing?
Yes.
Yeah, Jacob does it. Jacob can help you, and you can do as much of it as you want. But we're already giving you our instructions, right? The rub is that unless you have some experience, this is what always scares me. You do something technical, like if I was going to overhaul a jet engine, and you have the instructions and you have all the parts, and you're following the instructions, in the back of your mind, you know that something might deviate from the instructions and you don't know how to fix it when that happens, right? And so that's kind of way this stuff is here. You know, you have the instructions, you know, they're probably either totally correct or 99.9% correct, but that half of 1% or 1% could cause you to have a explosion, a smoking hole in the ground, right? Because 1%, you know, it's like clothes is only good in horseshoes and hand grenades, right? And so this software business that we're in, this IT business, very exacting. Questions from folks, other questions? Yeah, so we'll help you with that, right? So if you have the PDF, that'll get you 99% of the way there, and then Jacob can help you a little bit with that. I'm sure you could call Wim DeCourt or another highly qualified consultant, maybe even Chris Moore, you could hire them to help you with that as well. I just want to make sure that we answer any questions. Today was more of a platform update. So I like where Claris is going. I like that Brad Freitag articulated what he did. I thought it was really great. So we don't feel like we have a, you know, like we're being held hostage with a gun to our head. You know, that always sucks, right? And so he's like, yeah, just keep an eye on it. It's going to get better. And at some point when the limitations have been removed and you can use it, then yeah, do you want to pay attention to it? Doesn't mean you have to use it today. It just means you should probably kind of keep an eye on it, right? Kind of cool.
Yeah. I do honestly recommend watching their little updates that they've been doing they're a little spaced out now, maybe 2 or 3 months, but
yeah,
you know,
like
they're basically they're public updates. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I have to dig out the Claris Studio and see the latest on that. Claris is talking about working on creating curriculum for training. And I saw this and I was like, yeah, you know, it was interesting, you know, Claris Studio, right? So is anyone out there that I know that you hear using Claris Studio, and you have anything you'd like to say about Studio? Because they were kind of talking about it a little bit, and wasn't that slide, it was a different slide.
And Bear would like to know if we're planning on doing how to set up the Apple authentication.
We could, yeah, that wasn't on our...
I'll explain why I wasn't planning on it, but
why don't you explain why you're planning on it?
It's hard. They have an entire, it's on the engineering blog. There's a post about it.
Let's talk about that real quick.
Yep. Yeah. You have to like create and cycle keys and stuff. It's non-trivial. So yeah, honestly, it might be useful to do a stream on it just because of that. Because, you know, I don't know if their directions are good. I just skimmed through them basically and was like, oh, it doesn't look like the Apple thing's on there. I'll have to go find. There's a document somewhere for the Apple. So
I thought it was a document on wiring up with Apple. Well, my question would be is that they have got this smoking bug or this bad implementation of OAuth with ID providers. And then if that affects the Apple thing on top of it, I would rather that before we run around and promote it,
get that fixed.
Fundamentally fix the product. Because the problem is, here's the thing: if you're working on trying to demo something, and you have this fundamental bug that is intermittent, whenever you have a problem, you never know whether it's you or the product has just lost its mind, because you know that there's a problem in there, right? So my thought right now would be to avoid OAuth and third-party identity providers and any of that stuff. If you have it working, leave it alone. But if you want to turn on, use it, I would wait till Claris fixes it. Anyway, so the Claris Engineering blog is a really great read. There's a lot of good stuff in here. Some of it's on the little deep end of things, but some of it's great. Here's this, you know, like why Linux conversation, right? Here's load balancing, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what they're pitching for load balancing. I have to read up on that.
Dockerizing WebDirect workers.
Oh, is that what that is? Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then with that combination with 19.6 specifically, they certified the Linux Dockerized WebDirect workers up to 120 from 100, so you can do 600 total WebDirects. So.
Well, the other way to play that game, right, and in some ways might be easier, would be to do server replication, right, with MirrorSync from 360works. We had that. We did a whole week on that, which was really interesting. And that way you just build individual servers. You put them on AWS. Thank you very much. And you can just create an image of them, duplicate them, and then move them to different data centers. Then all you have to do is cross-connect it with MirrorSync and 360works. Jesse makes great products at 360works. They make a whole team there, makes great products. They have MirrorSync, which does a great job in doing offline synchronization. as well as server replication is the other thing it can do. And so instead of getting really deep into Docker and brand new technology, to me, I think it's a lower lift to do server replication because we've done it, right? Very cool. All right, cool. Well, we're kind of coming into the show. I don't have any other comments or questions, but that's kind of your brain dump of what's new going on. As a reminder, coming up for Monday, we're going to be doing some custom functions with Jake Shealy. They'll be talking about that stuff. I'm not sure why they're doing a demo, but Jake must have built something bad, whatnot, that he wants to show off. If you build something that's really cool and you want to show it off, feel free to just reach out to us because we'll be happy to set you up on the schedule and let you do that. A collection of Christian's tips and tricks for FileMaker. That's Friday. Christian is the creator of the Wolfpack, for those of you wondering about that. So if you go to fmstartingpoint.com, you go to the marketplace over here, you'll see the Wolfpack over here. This is that kind of collection of add-ons. It's you bring it down, you hit the button, and it just installs it for you. So back to the add-on technology that was created, right?
That's the other one.
You're
looking at the clip manager. You go back one.
Oh,
he's got two. He's got Wolfpack and he's got the toolbox.
Right? So you got
correct. They're both wolf.
Yep. You screwed me up. You should call it puppy or beaver. Beaver pack. I want a beaver pack. That would be awesome. Little fluffy beavers chewing on wood, building dams. All right. So yeah, so he with people building a lot of great content once again. So you can download that stuff there. And then we're talking to the folks at LiveCode still. So there's an open dialogue going on with them. And they so there's a couple different ways of getting an app to Android. They have a way of doing it. I think probably less technically difficult, but if you want to learn JavaScript coming up on our broadcast schedule, I will just briefly show this to you, remind you to put it on your calendar because it's going to be really awesome. So if I come over here, this is a system that dynamically drives the website with the latest content on it. So I can come over here to the future live stream, hit a button, and it refreshes. And it says, I don't know why it's doing a sort. I have yet to investigate why someone.
I don't know the sort. You're on 2 p.m., so the backup's running right now is why that's slow.
Oh, why it's chunking.
You happened to click at the wrong second.
The top of the hour. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. So if I hit the button, this is my internal view of our broadcast schedule. Every day we're broadcasting except Saturdays and Sundays. We got Nick action in here. President's Holiday looks like there's no live stream on the 20th. And then here comes Leland Long, JavaScript up the wazoo. Okay, so a lot of JavaScript. And because I'm sure you folks, when you're learning JavaScript, will have lots of questions. That's the whole idea. So we're bringing him to you. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. 2 weeks of JavaScript, right? So set it on your calendar. Look forward to that. It'll be awesome. So that is it for today. We greatly appreciate it. If you have questions or comments, send an email to support@RC Consulting. We will be happy to take your advice. If you have ideas for topics for conversations, streams, right? Like sometimes I always get these emails. Would be really great if you showed me how to do a API that connects to this API system that does this very specific thing with this very specific thing that connects with my database. But they want me to do a live stream on how to do their custom app for them for their specific situation in their company. I said, well, the topics we do are try to be generic in nature. So we try to find generic topics a little bit that have applicability outside of one person. But yeah, awesome stuff. So where's the closer, Margaret? Where do I hit the closer at? Yes. There it is. Woo! Of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license
Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir.